Hi, I am Alexa Prismowski, and I am going to be sharing my information on the Great Cipher that I have found. The historical background on it is of French origin. It was created during the 1600s, and its main purpose was for war times and for um, sending out information that wasn't wanted to be known to other people. It was created by a father and a son together, Anton Rossignol and Bonaventure Rossignol. They became known as cryptologists in 1626 when they decoded a letter that was coming between the Huguenots and the French. And they did it very quickly and were efficient. And they soon after created the Great Cipher that they used during that time. Details of the Great Cipher. It was very complex code that was created at that time. It wasn't very common for it to be made in that way, and so it wasn't even solved for 60 years. It is categorized as a nomenclature code because of the way that the cipher functions. It was not very common for them to use it in this way, and so it was harder for others to understand it. The cipher is composed of numbers that represent French syllables. It was more traditional to have the numbers represent individual letters, and that was why it was more individual and special in that way. There are 587 numbers that represent the different syllables. And because of the syllables, it wasn't decoded very easily, and it was kept secret for in times of war when they needed it to be used. The cipher was very secretive, and even though it was harder for them to decode and decipher, they even used more careful measures to make sure that it wouldn't be decoded. Anton and Bonaventure came up with different ways to make it more difficult for their enemies to decode it. And so one of the ways that they came up with was to create nulls in the cipher and in the letters that they would send that were meant to be ignored by the intended recipients. This is the code and the different ways that it was decoded. The Rosingles, who created this and came up with this code, Anton Rosingel was only 36 when he first was recognized for his ability as a photographer. His son Bonaventure worked by him, and they worked together to come up with this cipher and to decode many other ciphers during the time that they served in 1826. When there was a war between France and a different country, they were able to decode a letter quickly and efficiently, and that earned them a place in court, and they were able to serve King Louis XIV in 1643. And they performed many different tasks for him that had to do with codes and decoding things. This is a picture of Anton and Bonaventure. The decoding efforts, it was after Bonaventure, the son of Anton, died, that the use of the Great Cipher did not continue. The key and even the base concept were lost until the 19th century when Anton um, Bozieres finally decoded it. Um, it was forgotten in a way, and there were many documents from that time period that weren't decoded and weren't able to be deciphered because of that. Um, Anton Bozieres was a French military cryptologist, and during the 1890s and also during the First World War, he discovered that the Great Cipher had still not been decoded after such a long time, and he knew that it would be helpful for the French to have the documents that were still coded from the cipher. And um, it took him 3 years to even figure out a connection, but he was finally able to discover the pattern and how the cipher was created, and thus figure out how to decode it. By figuring that out that cipher, he was able to decode many other documents from that time period and was able to figure out a lot of information because of that. The Great Cipher was incredible in the way that it was able to work and function, and how it was able to stay coded for so long. And it was very effective for the time period in which it was made, and incredible that it lasted so long from being decoded. And that is the Great Cipher.